Today's lesson will focus on how to do a metric to English or English to metric conversion. This is if you have something like meters and you need to change it into something like feet, or miles to nanometers, or liters to teaspoons or hogheads or something like that. You're going between the two different systems. I will not require you to memorize all the English to English or metric to English conversions. I'm not going to make you know that there's 3.28 meters or feet in a meter, or 2.54 centimeters in an inch, or how many milliliters there are in a hogshead, or anything like that. In fact, I'm not even going to tell you very many. I'm going to give you a sheet that's going to contain several of these. The metric prefixes are at the top. That's important, but not for this lesson. Today I want to focus on these other conversion factors. Not all of them, but many of them. Many of those contain English to English conversions or English to metric conversions. Here's an English to English. Here is an English to metric. Pounds to kilograms, that's English to metric. Here's quarts to gallons to pints to cups, that's English to English to English to English. But you can get the idea. These have some form of English units, most of these, and they're going to be useful as we go through and learn how to do some of these English to metric conversions. Again, you don't have to memorize these, and in fact this is nowhere near exhaustive. We could make, we could come up with hundreds of these conversions and write out a big chart. And so you can't possibly memorize them all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to get by with just a few, just 7 or 8 or 9 different conversions on a sheet here that can help you do anything. So the idea here is I have some unit in English and I want to turn it to some unit in metric, or vice versa. And as I go through, at some point I'm going to need to jump. I have rules in the English system where I can convert between English and English, or I have rules in the metric system, but at some point I change systems, and so I'm going to have to know some equivalency between metric and English, and that's where that chart comes from. I'm going to get that off of here somewhere. So this kind of restates what I said a little bit ago. So here's an example of what we're talking about. How many centimeters, that is a metric system unit, are there in 150 miles? That's an English system unit. And I'll give you a little pro tip here. Pro tip! Hashtag pro tip. Trace out your conversion path before you start. What in the world does that mean? Well, let's figure that out. So I know that I need to get from centimeters into, I'm starting with miles, don't I? Miles to centimeters. That's what I want to do. So the simplest thing would be to go back to our little chart that I did a minute ago and looked at and said, okay, well, how many centimeters are in a mile? And so we look and we look and we look and we see, well, here's miles to meters, here's inches to centimeters. There's not anything on there about centimeters to miles. And like I said a minute ago, you can't possibly list every English to metric conversion, and so we're not going to find everything. So you could Google it or something like that in the real world, but I want to teach you the skill of being able to go from one thing to another with limited information. What we can do then, we know that if we go back here, we see that we can get miles into something else. We can get miles into meters. We can do that. We go miles into meters, and then meters is actually something that we should be able to change into centimeters. And so that's one way we could do this, and that would be just fine. I'm not going to go that way, though. The reason I'm not going to go that way is this is a metric conversion, and it's possible that we've not yet learned how to do metric conversions. So let's see if there's a different way to do this. Well, here we have inches to centimeters. So that tells me that if I can get miles into inches, I should be able to do this thing. And so that's what I'm going to do. And this is actually a longer way to do it. This isn't necessarily the best way. But I can get, for instance, miles into feet. That's on my chart. And then I can get feet into inches, and then I can get inches into centimeter. I could do that without even needing to know how to do a metric conversion. And so that's what I'm going to do. Again, not because that's the best way to do this, but because of what we know right now. We're going to go miles to feet to inches. So let's go ahead and kind of clear that off. Miles to feet to inches. How do we do that? Well, we have 150 miles. And we're going to put miles on the bottom because we want to cancel out miles. And we want to get it into feet. And so we're going to go back and look at our sheet. If we don't know this one, we have right here it says miles to feet is 5,280. So 5,280 feet is 1 mile. And then we said miles to feet to inches to centimeters. That's how we're going to do this. So hopefully those of us in the United States, we probably know what to do next. I'm going to move all this over a bit. Woo. Feet to inches, most of us probably know that, unless we're from Europe. Even people from Europe might know that, I don't know. Feet to inches, it's a very American conversion. 1 foot is 12 inches. Most Americans know that. And then, and if you don't know that, by the way, it is on that chart on the other page. So now we've got it to feet, we've got it to inches. Now inches to centimeters, so we want to get rid of inches, write it on the bottom. We want to get centimeters on the top. If we go back here, we circled earlier that 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters, so we can go back here and we can write 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters. So if we check our units here, miles cancels, feet cancels, and inches dies. And the only unit left standing is centimeters. So how do we get the answer then? Well, now we're left with the numbers. Numbers on top get multiplied, numbers on the bottom get divided. In this case, all the numbers on the bottom are just ones, so we don't really care about those. So we take 150 times 5,280 times 12 times 2.54 gives me a number of 24,140,160 centimeters, but we always, when we get done, need to check our rounding. Again, with a conversion, we look at significant digits that we started with. Here the 1 and the 5 are significant, the 0 is not, so this has 2 significant digits, so I want to write this with 2 significant digits, which is simply 24 million centimeters. We'll do one more example. How many cups are in 25.0 liters? So again, pro tip, we're going to trace out our path, and we might need to go back and look around a while. We're going to start with liter, and so we go back and look at that chart for a while. What sorts of things can we change liter into? Well, it says here, here's something we can change liters into gallons. In fact, that's the only thing I see on there, so we can go liters into gallons. And so liters into gallons, and then gallons into cups. We can probably do that right away, because that's an English to English conversion, and it's on there. If not, you can go gallons to quarts to cups, or gallons to quarts to pints to cups, or whatever you need. So let's do this. Now that we've sort of traced out our path, how we're going to get there, let's go ahead and do it. So we have 25.0 liters. I want to get rid of liters. I want to replace it with gallons. And so if I go back and look at that earlier, it's 1 gallon is 3.8 liters. And then I'm going to go gallons into cups. So I get rid of gallons and I put cups on top. If you don't know how many gallons there are in a cup or vice versa, it says back here, it says 1 gallon is equal to a bunch of other things which are equal to 16 cups. So 16 cups, 1 gallon, and we're left with cups and gallon, liter, and so we're left with 25 times 1 times 16 divided by 3.8. 25 times 1 times 16 is 400. Divide that through 3.8 and we get 105.2631579. And then we stop and ask ourselves about sig figs. We began with that number which had 3 significant digits, which means that we want 3 significant digits. So our answer is 105 cups. Hooray.